Man, thank goodness.
Welcome to the HEX Late Show. It's 43OG here with you on a Tuesday evening in Australia, Tuesday afternoon in Europe, and very early on a Tuesday morning in the US. So I'm all by my lonesome today. I'm not sure where everyone is. I know Jex is unavailable. Tangent, don't know. Actually, here's Tangent. But I've got some clips today that we're going to talk about. We're going to have a look at and talk about. What's up, Tangent?
Yo, sorry I'm late, and also sorry for my voice.
You're good, dude.
I've done a partial voice loss from partying too hard over the weekend.
Nice. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it or not.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm here.
Awesome. So what's been going on, man? Apart from partying on the weekend, have you been keeping up to date with the happenings with all the FTX stuff? I know that there's been like hearings in the US, like politicians talking, asking questions. What are your thoughts on all that stuff?
Yeah, reasonably well. I've been able to keep up to date with it. I mean, a lot of the channels talk about it, and I use a website called Crypto Panic that I really like. It's a crypto news aggregator, and so a lot of the time when I tweet out news articles is actually from there, and the feed moves quickly, man. It's like because it's a news aggregator, there's just stuff getting pumped in there all the time. So the latest thing on FTX that came up on there was Sam agreeing to extradition, which I believe is partly because, or it was said that it was because the jails in the Bahamas are so bad that he would prefer to be under the full magnitude of the law in the US than spend an extended time in like rat-infested prisons in the Bahamas.
There's probably I don't know, but there might be more sort of abuse happening in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
You know, the type of abuse that you might want to avoid.
Those jokes are already flying around on Twitter for sure.
I had a religious instruction teacher in high school who once said that if you're going to go to jail for white collar crime. That's what he told us.
I think better advice would be try not to go to jail at all.
Yeah, that's the better advice.
It's like if you absolutely have to go to jail. Look, I was having a chat. So one of the artists from the event on the weekend, I picked him up from the airport. We went for dinner before his set, and he's from the UK. He's a UK drum and bass artist, and we were talking about the difference between the prisons over there and over here. and it's like prisons in the UK is at least 10 times worse than Australian prisons in terms of, you know, risk of death, risk of physical violence, all of that stuff. So I think Australia like is not too bad for going to jail.
Yep. I agree.
So I guess my opinion of this is,
I just want to say that I think that everyone should try and stay out of jail by doing
absolutely,
like staying within the confines of the law. That's very important, in my opinion.
the punishment of prison starts to get a bit meta, right? Because the punishment is supposed to be a restriction to your freedom, that you are restricted in where you can go, who you can meet with, when. It's a freedom restriction. But then there are these punishments that occur that are unintended, or at least formally unintended, like physical violence, you know, shit food, shit beds, that sort of thing. I think one of the biggest punishments, a part of it in the modern era, is being cut off from the internet. For a lot of people, that would be very, very difficult, right? Like that has become, some of my friends say that they would rather have their water cut off than their internet cut off, and they're being deadly serious. So then if you said, oh, when you go to prison, you won't be able to drink water, that's to try to explain to you how much of a punishment that would be for those people. It would be like, for them, it's so important. It's, you know,
they can just drink beer in prison. Yeah.
Toilet brew, toilet beer. But the other thing that's surprising is apparently in all prisons in all countries, access to like drugs and stuff like that is actually quite easy. I've been told that it's surprisingly easy to get drugs in prisons.
Right. Okay. Richard Hart did a stream this week.
Bullshit.
Yeah, he did a stream this week. So I've got.
I missed it. Who with? Who with? Solo, or was it an interview?
Paul Barron. He was interviewed by a guy called Paul Barron. So I've got a clip from that.
I did also see he released a tweet that actually had some Pulse update in it. I think there must have just mounting community pressure, where people were like, yo, we just want to hear something, like just tell us any shit, just like. And so he did like a technical update, which I think people are happy with. Like,
yeah,
people would rather hear something that they don't understand what it is than like literal radio silence. So I think that was a really good step in the right direction.
So the next clip just demonstrates how important it is when the community engages in a poll that's put out by people who have streams, who do interviews.
Welcome back into Tech Path. We did a poll over on Twitter, and I just want to show this. I'll give Richard a little bit more for his ego. I don't think he needs much more, if you know Richard. And that is, who would you want on the show to talk about, Bitcoin, crypto, macro outlook for 23? We had Richard in there, not so Mr. Wonderful. Meet Kevin next, and then PBD, the boss. That's, of course, Patrick Bet David. This wasn't even a race, people. And that was 2,300 votes. This wasn't even a race. So that's why Mr. Richard Hart is here today. So I want to welcome Richard Hart to the show. Great to have you on the show.
Yo, that's
what happens when people engage and click the vote button. You can get Richard onto a stream. So
I missed that poll, by the way. I wasn't involved in that poll.
With the polls, when people do that, don't be lazy.
But I will say, haters will claim bots, and I mean that in a serious way. That haters will actually claim that Richard or Richard's fans used bots to smash that poll. We know that the HEX community is literally that strong. We've seen it across multiple streams. People who have Richard on their streams get engagement that is like X factors, like factors of like multiple factors higher than their usual shit in terms of likes and comments and those chat donation thingos and all that shit. So we know that the community is actually that strong. But I think haters will claim that, especially with how drastically outweighed that result was, people will be like, that doesn't look real. That doesn't look legit.
it was only a couple of thousand votes all up, and you and I both know that it's a couple of thousand votes is not hard for the community.
It surprises me that, I mean, I was obviously out partying or whatever when that poll occurred, but it surprises me that the HEX community didn't get smashed more votes than that. You would think that that would have gone viral. People would have just retweeted the shit out of it, and it would have just been like massive in like the thousands of votes.
Not even sure how soon. Not even sure how soon that happened. Like if it was something that happened immediately, or whether it was out for a couple of days, or how that went down. But yeah, so on that stream, Richard was talking about, you know, a lot of the usual stuff that he talks about, but he did talk about some macro stuff. So I've got a clip from that, and we can listen to sort of like market prediction type stuff.
Bro, I'm actually surprised that the Richard streaming didn't pump the HEX price at all. I would have thought if he had jumped on a stream, price would have gone up. That would have just been a prediction of mine.
Yeah. I don't know how hard he was just like shilling. I think a lot of interviewed people like probably say, look, dude, just go easy on the shill.
Sorry, by the way, can I just clarify? I didn't mean from him shilling HEX and new people buying in. I more meant from the existing community just getting excited that he's finally on a stream and buying the price up internally. But yeah, good point that it could have also been from that of like a shill. I don't mind. I don't mind the indirect path of Richard being on a show, not mentioning anything to do with HEX, and some people who are interested in getting into crypto being like, who is this guy? So it being one step removed. They have to look, they have to go, this guy sounds elite. I want to know who the shit he is. I haven't heard of him before. Look him up in any way. And then immediately, once they look him up, they're going to see HEX. So I think that normally an extra step is a disaster for getting things to happen, right? Because humans are just intrinsically slack. Like, you know, there's if you put one extra barrier in front of them, it doesn't fucking happen, like usually. But in this case, I think it's an acceptable double bounce to get to the result we want.
And it's sort of selecting for people who don't mind doing that extra step, because in crypto,
good point.
In crypto, you need to be like of the mindset that you're going to have to do some extra steps, because you're not just going to like snap your fingers and get into crypto. You sort of need to do a little bit of research of where you need to, where you on ramp and how you custody, and if you can get that far.
100%.
You've got to sell.
Every other time crypto has bottomed, it's been in a quantitative easing environment. Crypto's never bottomed in a quantitative tightening environment before.
Yeah.
So now look, crypto will bottom first, in my opinion. But until he pivots, stops raising the rates, and then we get the actual market crash. So usually people think the pivot saves you. Usually, historically, the pivot is then followed by the real crash.
Yeah, it kills you.
And then you get your bottom 6 months, 8 months later, and then you go up. So now look, this is uncharted territory, right? So look, if there wasn't so many coins ready to get sold, I would feel better about calling a crypto bottom. But we haven't hit my price targets. We have barely run, we just basically finished up a year of bear from the double top.
All right.
And the macro environment is that they're going to keep raising rates, which is going to keep hurting the prices of everything. And until the pivot and the crash and hitting the price targets, I'm just not comfortable calling a bottom.
Yeah. Okay.
And price matters a lot more than timing. So
you feel like it's more somewhere around 11,000, 2023 would be your prediction for where Bitcoin is.
I mean,
it's going to hit the 11,000 mark.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's your number. Okay.
I mean, technically an 85% drop from 69K is 10,350.
Yeah. What about
the real math? But in case people front run my calls, I want to give them a little extra leeway and just give it 11K.
Yeah.
11K and pray.
What's ETH for 20?
I mean, ETH already did an 85% drop.
Yeah.
So that's not an exciting call anymore, is it? So if it went back down to 880, that's an 85% drop.
Yeah.
So what's a more exciting call? 600, 400. I mean, technically, its last cycle, it did a 95% drop. It really could do it again.
So I've heard a few people. Yeah. No one wants to see ETH that low. But it could get there. Yeah, it could get there. We don't know. So I've heard people in the community saying on stream that they think that maybe like HEX has front run the bottom. Like maybe HEX has already come down, and then if other stuff drops, that maybe HEX won't. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
I'd need to see the trend reverse, man. I'd need to see something that looks like a bottom, like that. It looks like it's and the other thing that scares me a bit is
what's the chart looking like at the moment?
The last few times, I'll grab it. The last few times that it looked like HEX was showing relative strength, it unfortunately was not. It was just a delayed reaction. So ETH and Bitcoin went down. By the way, the reason I've got this chart and not my usual one, I started getting a MetaMask phishing attempt warning on the domain that I normally go to check the HEX chart, which is like the uniswap.vision thing. It's like, this is a phishing website. And I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered working out whether this is a real, like a false alarm or legit. So I've gone back to using this one. I'll just share it. Shit, where is it? So the last couple of times, what's been a bit sad has been that, I'll try and just max this out a bit. Is that good?
Yep, that's good.
So let's just get this chart like this. So see, I've drawn a double line on this downtrend, right? So this is a downtrend. This is 4-hour candles starting from 26th of October that we've been in this local downtrend. And the reason I've drawn a double line at the top end was that I have a rule that you shouldn't break candle bodies when you're drawing trend lines. So, but there've just been these 2 times here where it's sort of like looked like it was about to break out and then fell back into within the trend. So technically this is the trend line here, the top one that doesn't break candle bodies and still makes it up to this wick up here. It's the same trend line, but one is just like, one touches more candles or touches more, like makes more contact, but technically breaks the rules. The other one doesn't break the rules, but doesn't make as much contact because it misses all of these highs across here. So, but realistically, sometimes I do this. I think it's reasonable, right? That this is the downtrend we're looking for. Now, this one got me. Like, I didn't actively buy it, but I was convinced. So when this happened here, that we really aggressively smashed through the trend line. We came back, we retested it, and we moved off again. So this is what traders look for, is the break of the trend, the retest, and moving off. So when we're in this candle here, I was like, okay, sweet. We're going to get at least some relief and get out of this particular local downtrend. And then absolute wreckage, smashed down, fucking just absolute train wreck back under the trend line. And here we are just showing weakness again. So we've made a new local low of below 2.5 cents. Like the chart just looks like trash. Like it's really bad. It's really fucking bad.
So
but
on the flip side, the chart being trash, right? On the flip side, like for T-shares, like T-share, the cost of getting a T-share in terms of HEX, well, in terms of, I guess, dollars getting in is quite low at the moment. You know,
yeah.
I mean, the T-share rate goes up, but if the US dollar to HEX price is quite low in terms of US dollars, I guess, it's I'm not going to say go out and, you know, buy, but it's not expensive, I guess, in terms of you know, the history of the HEX chart in the past year and a half. it seems like a pretty good time to
I agree with you.
I guess
the unfortunate like paradox, if that's the right word for this, is that the time where it's best to be shilling something to friends or like to anyone that you know is also the hardest time to convince people that it's actually a good idea to get in. So this is like, I do believe that this whole idea that we're either at or close to the bottom for crypto in general. And yet, if I was to go and tell I do have actually a small number of friends, I will admit, who have actually come to me, which is really shocking, being keen to get into crypto recently, which I'm like, and I tell them, I'm so impressed with you guys that this is actually the right time to be looking to start to enter. I'm like, don't blow your load all at once. Don't get your amount and put it all in. Don't do that, because there's still potential that we could go down significantly from here. Like, you know, another 50% or whatever. So assume the worst, but it's a great time to be thinking about it, looking into it and scaling into it. But the whole kind of like DCA entry thing. But excluding that small group of people who have either learnt from my videos or just shockingly have the correct attitude towards investment, for most people, they would be like, hell no, dude, I'm not buying any shit right now, especially not like alts, you know?
Yeah.
So like people risk off. And look, that comment that Richard made is one of my biggest fears. We have never seen a crypto bear market that is coincident with a macro recession in legacy economics, like legacy finance. That's never occurred. So it would be naive to suggest that like a high degree of confidence that this is going to play out with any level of certainty in terms of how the bottom will occur. I still genuinely have very high conviction for crypto in the long term. And the amount of good news, like if you look at that Crypto Panic website I mentioned and scroll back, the amount of great news that has been coming out for crypto. Visa is doing something with Polygon. Heaps of banks are bullish. There's institutions that have claimed that they've got large amounts of cash reserves that they're looking to deploy into crypto. It's the news cycle is bullish in the way that you don't counter trend, you don't counter trade. So sometimes when there's bullish news, it's actually bearish, right? Because it means the shit is overhyped. But this is the type of bullish news that is actually fundamentally good for the long term. But that's been the story of this whole year for me, where I'm like, everything is so fundamentally bullish, and then yet the prices just continue to get crushed. So I need to see more. I want to see a break of this green downtrend. Then I want to see a break of this white downtrend, or these two white downtrends. And then I want to see a break eventually. Oh, sorry, that's both of them. Yeah, so it's this, if we can get out of this green local downtrend, that was the two lines that you just saw previously. And then it's this one and this one. By the time we get there, they might be the same fucking line. But I mean, yeah, actually, maybe they already. Oh, yeah, I know, right? Because then that actually makes it a more powerful resistance if you've got coincident. I mean, I don't have moving averages on this chart, but.
So Vibra Finance says once we go under 10 million total T-shares, FOMO will kick in. It's a big psychological number. Yeah.
You know what, bro? I think we're good. Like these lines are converging at such a slow rate. I really don't think it is going to take. This is like starting to get into like February, March. I don't think it's going to take that long for HEX to get up above these levels. So I think we'll be able to fight these two downtrends separately. Thank God. Because you make an amazing point that, you know, when you have coincident resistances, it just makes it even harder.
There's a comment here. T-share goes up because it's a self-inflating coin.
I'll chuck some moving averages on here for fun.
Not sure what the what Rolando is getting at exactly. T-shares like have been deflationary they've been going down. So even though there may be the coin is inflating, HEX inflates, it costs more to regain those T shares in terms of HEX. That's just in the code. It's coded into the contract.
So I've just thrown on some moving averages. These are 200-day, 50-day, and 21-day, and so that's what they look like. And if we zoom in, yeah, they will all of those will also be crossed before we have to cross these resistances. So that's actually not looking too bad. That we would just, one like this downtrend, this one, this moving average, this one, then these downtrends, and then this horizontal support resistance zone. And yeah, that's all right. I think it's a long fight ahead of us, and I'd like to start the journey sooner rather than later.
Wouldn't we all?
No. Apparently, there are still a few people in the community that would love to see the price of HEX go down even further. Bro, I'm serious, man. I'm serious. There are people on Twitter. I know that sounds fucking ridiculous, but there are people on Twitter that every time this conversation comes up, they're like, I actually want the price to go down lower. I would actually like to see the price lower. And I'm like, bro, that is cope. Like, just...
I guess these people are of the mindset that they want to back in the truck.
Yeah. Some of them, it would fall into three categories, right? It would be like some that sold and want to get back in lower to get an increased stack of number of HEX. And so those people genuinely do want the price to go down selfishly at the detriment of the overall chart and everyone in it, community spirit, all of that shit, all of the disadvantages that come from it. People who are just doing pure fucking cope, and people that are just retarded, that they don't understand the pros and cons of the narratives all getting fucked, like all the narratives just getting absolutely fucked, worse and worse and worse. The longer that we stay down and go down, we're just losing narratives. Or like, look, lots of these narratives are already lost, but it's like how revivable they are, like how the ability to even
give me an example
them at all.
Give me an example of one of these narratives that you're talking about.
I guess the main one is like HEX being more resistant to bear markets or just downside price action at all.
So that
given the locking mechanism,
that's been smashed, right?
But there's dead, and then there's like dead and never to be recovered. And I think there still is a chance for revival because people have got short memories, right? People have got fucking short memories.
Yeah, but we've done but HEX has done a 95% drop. So the narrative that it is, you would have need to have seen only like a 75% drop for such a new
something. Yeah, just something better than a standard alt chart. Yeah.
So the fact that it's gone down 95% tells me, I mean,
all right.
It tells me that
one's dead. That
narrative,
one's dead. Yeah.
But that was never that was a narrative that I think was out in the community. We thought this could be something that happens as a result.
Oh yeah. It was never guaranteed. We never promised anyone. That was never guaranteed. Like it was just. It
the
seemed like a reasonable. It seemed like a reasonable assumption to make.
Yeah. But that narrative is non-existent now. Like it's non-existent because that 95% drop, and it could be more. It could be more. Hopefully it's not, but obviously we do not know. No one knows. The market will decide.
Let's look. So this is a new low on the daily chart, by the way. So that's bad, right? Like as in every time, the rules. When you're making new all-time highs, it's bullish. When you're making new all-time lows, and I know this is not technically an all-time low, but I'm talking of this cycle, right? So I should call it a cycle low. So we're making new cycle lows when I'm talking about like the macro cycles, like the macro crypto cycles. Making a new all-time low new cycle low is bearish as fuck. That's bearish. So yeah, it's that's right, isn't it? Yeah.
Look,
sorry, wrong.
We're going to talk about narratives.
Oh no, I was right.
Because the narrative that is not, I guess, can't be broken, is the narrative that if you stake your HEX, do a native stake with the HEX contract, you cannot sell that. It stops you from selling before that commitment has been met, unless you're willing to eat a penalty. And you will, and if you meet your smart contractual agreement and serve time, you will have more HEX at the end of that period of time, because that is hard coded into the contract.
Yep.
So that narrative can't be broken. That is, it's something that's outside the scope of price up, price down. It's, you will have more HEX if you stake it natively, and at the end of that, you serve your time. That is 100% can't be broken, that narrative.
Yes, yeah. Fortunately, that
actually, I won't say 100%. I would say, as far as I,
it would require a black swan. It would require either a collapse/failure of Ethereum itself, the smart contract platform that HEX is built on top of, would break that narrative, obviously, but it would break everything. Or some kind of bug in the HEX contract that went unseen for 3 full years of flawless operation, which is just like,
every day that passes, that is more and more unlikely.
Or let's say quantum computer threat would be maybe more likely than that. Like that's hidden quantum, but that's I agree. That's all of crypto, everything broken. Well, except for maybe a few projects that genuinely did make their shit quantum hard prematurely. But there are claims of that, but we don't know for sure that they're actually not just false claims.
So here's a comment from Vibra Finance. I doubt the 95% would have happened if it wasn't for sacrifices. We went up artificially, I think. So that's an interesting idea there. The question is, did the sacrifices take those tokens out of circulation? So you would think, if those tokens are out of circulation, perhaps now the fact that they haven't been sold, is that
I think they might be referring to the sacrifices that were not done by Richard Hart. I think they might be referring to every other project that took sacrifices and then would have sold what they were given. So if people either sold their HEX to fund the sacrifices in stablecoins, or sacrificed HEX, but then those projects dumped it to get whatever they needed.
Yeah, that's a good point
for funding. Yeah,
I see what you're saying, Vibra Finance. That would be the case, wouldn't it? Because those projects, I don't know. I haven't followed them.
Oh, sorry. Or what they might be saying is that the amount that we went up was actually fueled partly by people buying HEX to sacrifice it.
Yeah,
possibly is what that's being said there, in terms of that sentence that says we went up artificially. So it's probably a combination of one of those three things. The two things that I tried to extract out of this comment, and the one thing that you were talking about that you thought the comment was about. It's probably a combination of those three things are all probably credible factors. Yeah. This comes back to something that I always say, is that these markets and systems are too complicated for people to assign simple narratives to what is happening or what may happen. I always try to get people to not buy into or present to others with super simple narratives of, like, say, an example is, when PulseChain comes out, everyone's going to dump their coin X for coin Y because they had that one in preparation to try and get more of the other or whatever. It's like, yeah, that might be explain the thought process and plans of a group of people, but not the entire market. So,
and also I've noticed just anecdotally, when there is a widespread belief or understanding in the community of what they think is going to happen, and case in point, a lot of people thought that when the HSI auction started, that the price of Hedron would just go nuts and probably make all-time highs, because they thought people would go out and buy Hedron and then go, and that would have, there would be buyer pressure on Hedron and the price would go up. So a lot of people in the community thought that was going to happen, and it hasn't played out that way. So what I have noticed is, that's just one example, but what I've noticed is when there's a widespread belief in the community, it doesn't play a lot of the time it doesn't play out like that. It almost goes
it almost comes under the same category of buy the rumor, sell the news, right? Like, as in, the expectation rarely ends up meeting. Actually, it's not exactly the same, but I get what you're saying. I agree. It comes under that whole, like, if everyone thinks that something is going to happen, then that's too obvious, and the market will punish you for trying to go along with popular thinking.
It's almost if people are counter playing it. There's people listening to the community, seeing all this belief in what they think is going to happen, so they do the counterplay. And
there can always be some large entity that understands the benefits of selling into strength, so that they'll be like, okay, here's an opportunity where there's enough hype building around this thing, and I've got a big ass bag I need to unload. This is my opportunity. And then that one large entity can outweigh quite a lot of smaller entities that are buying into the hype. And the same thing can happen at the downside. So again, I know that sounds like I'm kind of breaking my own rule of doing this like simplified version, but it's just an example of what can happen. I have to always keep in mind that large scale entities have an outsized impact on the market, right? So it only takes one person who's a fucking mega whale to do the opposite of what everyone thinks is going to happen to completely fuck your prediction, right?
Yeah.
Another interesting example of that narrative thing that is, the narratives have shifted justifiably with the mega delays on Pulse. So it shifted from, oh man, there's going to be so many people who missed the sack who are going to be just fiending to get in, that when Pulse launches, the price is just going to probably do like an instant 10x or an instant 100x from the sack prices, to holy crap, this has taken so long to come out that people are pissed off and are going to dump on launch.
And this is what Par Excellence is sort of saying in this comment.
Or people are going to it was either get pissed off, either get pissed off and dump, or be so people who didn't realize the amount of time they were going to be without their capital are so desperate for other external reasons that they are forced sellers. When they finally get access to the ability to sell it, they're like, I really need this money for some other life thing, and they just can't afford to hold on to it, to wait for it to go up. So look, again, those are just two narratives that may or may not, that those things only influence subsets of the community, right? So it's not a guaranteed play. But what's Doza said here? People
might have brought up HEX approaching all-time highs, thinking they would get double on the PulseChain, then sold when it was delayed. The same people will buy back in as soon as PulseChain is announced. That's
there
what
is a there definitely is. There is a narrative that I do agree with, definitely that possible. When we see something that is like firm PulseChain stuff, I think that should have a positive impact on the HEX price. Just in it's indirect, but it's like it's enthusiasm based. It's just like community uplifting based. There's no direct link as to why that would push the price up, right? Or actually, there is one that if people are like, okay, in terms of the snapshot, which is, it's not really a snapshot, it's just the fork date. So when PulseChain
now
launches,
it's a fork.
it always was a fork of system state. So when it forks,
I thought it was a snapshot.
I
thought it was a snapshot of system state and a fork of the BSC consensus.
No, it was never. It was never. There was never a snap. There was never a snapshot. It was always going to be coincident that the.
Where's Jexa? This was Jex's cross to bear at the time. No, Jex's not here. No, because I remember you guys talking, like discussing this back in the day. Because
the only time I was ever wrong about it was when I had an argument with Eric Wall on Twitter, because he was saying it's a fork of BSC. And I was like, nah, bro, it's definitely a fork of ETH. And we were both correct, because I was right about the system state and he was right about the consensus algorithm, or the loose basis for the consensus algorithm. But ultimately, there was never a snapshot date that was independent. Richard, even at the time, said that even with the original structure of how PulseChain was going to launch, the launch of the mainnet and the snapshot or the balance transfer was a coincident event that were going to happen at the same time.
Well, I'll defer to you experts about this. I'm just saying what I thought I'd heard, but that's clearly not correct.
So wait. So you heard that there was going to be a separate snapshot, like a snapshot. The snapshot was going to happen independently of the fork.
No. Back in the day when it was still BSC, I thought that it was like a bit of both. I thought that it was, but that's, it's neither here nor there now. So let's given that we're on the topic, let's have a look at Richard Hart's tweet, which was.
Oh, that's a good point, man. Now the discussion is non-existent, because regardless of what it was before, now it's definitely, because it's ETH and ETH. It's the ETH consensus and the ETH system state. So it's definitely a fork. Yeah.
So the tweet was PulseChain update, working on mods to Lighthouse, prerequisite for Beacon Chain Explorer, similar to what was done to make Prism work with our larger integers, which don't fit in their standard unit slots. Also more AMM fix. Unless you're a dev, it's all gibberish. Let's try and decipher this. We're not devs, but let's try and decipher. I think I have a better idea of the large integer part of it, because the way Solidity works, as far as I understand, or the way this code works, is not, you can't have decimal places, and because there's so many more units in PulseChain.
Good point.
Or so many more Pulse tokens. I think this is in reference to that, that they have to alter the code accordingly, so that it all, everyone gets the right amount of tokens exist on the chain. And there's AMM fixes, so that's probably referring to PulseX, which is going to be the automated market maker. And when I say going to be, that's what's been indicated, that there's going to be an automated market maker on PulseChain called PulseX, which is basically a fork of, was it SushiSwap? What was the fork of? Or was it a fork of Uniswap?
I actually can't remember.
And by the way,
it would have either been Pancake. It would have either been Pancake. I think they would have taken the best of everything, man. I think they would have gone through the code of like Pancake Swap, Sushi,
Pancake,
1 inch, everyone. Oh, actually, maybe not 1 inch, because it's not.
By the way,
it doesn't need to be an aggregator.
That Uniswap version 3 contract is I think it's
coming out of copyright or whatever.
Yeah, in May. So we're fast approaching that. We're December now, so we're talking 5 months away until that. Which at the beginning, when the whole idea of PulseChain came out, 5 months seemed like a long time. Now 5 months doesn't seem like that far away. It's like we'd all take 5 months, man. Be like, is it coming out in 5 months? We'd all be happy with that, I think.
I know this will sound like a very extreme statement because time period wise, these are different orders of magnitude, but I mentally have started treating PulseChain a bit like I did with the Mt. Gox things, my Mt. Gox claim, where with Mt. Gox, after it had been more than about maybe when it was between 18 months and 2 years, I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna mentally pretend like this is never happening so that I'm not getting upset about it all the time. And it served me well because for the next 7 years, I was like not even thinking about it. Like I did a really good job of getting out of my mind. And I'm kind of doing the same thing with PulseChain where I'm just like, fuck it, whenever, like when it happens. So that then when it does happen, like, by the way, Mt. Gox coins, I actually am getting them back. I should have updated everyone. It looks like we're going to be getting them back in July of 2023. So, which if you believe Richard's narrative about, or like fear of Gox coins smashing the price down, it will not be during the depths of the bear, which you could say is good or bad. Like some people, you could pitch a pro or con argument for this. You could say, well, it's actually better to come out while it's lower because then people are selling and not extracting enough economic energy. But Bitcoin's a fucking behemoth. So if we're on the way up, it should be able to absolutely just eat the fuck out of any dumpage that comes out of those Mt. Gox coins. So I like the idea of it being once we've turned bullish, and we might be only just coming up off the floor at that time anyway. So the prices might still be low, but it looks like they've got 2 release mechanisms that I won't get into. One's,
what are your thoughts? Just while we're talking about, the low of Bitcoin, what are your thoughts on Richard Hart's prediction of 11K in prey? I know you've been like,
I still don't think we're going to go that low. I don't.
But like just to set the context, I mean, a while back when we were still like, in the 30s or the high 20s, you didn't think it was going to go below 20. And now we have gone below 20 and we've sat. And would you accept that the bottom isn't in?
I was definitely wrong. I was definitely too bullish. I wouldn't say I was still bullish, but I was more bullish than bearish. Like as in even when I flipped bearish, I was still too bullish. So I was like not bearish enough is what I'm trying to say. So I was wrong about my bullishness level, if we look at it as a spectrum, for most of the way down. And I'm still probably more bullish than I should be. I've got that kind of like, because I'm so pro crypto, I've got that kind of like perma bull attitude. And obviously that means that you get financially hurt more in bear markets, but you make more money in bull markets. And which is probably not the right way of doing it, but it's just intrinsic to me because I'm such a fan of crypto. I still maintain that though. So I wouldn't let that impact my assessment now, because do you see what I'm saying? If that would be like a PTSD response where I'm like, oh my God, I've been wrong every time. I should be more bearish. That'll be the one time that you're like, okay, now I'm going to go more bearish than I actually believe. And that'll be the time that you're wrong. So, and not just for that reason and more, I'm staying with I don't think we're going to 11K.
Yeah. Just in this tweet, he talks about working on mods to Lighthouse. Now, if you're running if you're a validator, Lighthouse is some, I'm trying to think, is it consensus? It's like you need 2 clients, basically. You need an execution client, and you need I think it's a consensus client to run an Ethereum validator nowadays. So I think that has something to do with that. Lighthouse, it rings a bell. Okay.
Yeah, nice. That was something that surprised me. The part of that tweet that surprised me was the comment about PulseX. You know how it had a comment that they were working on PulseX, or that there was something in the tweet about PulseX. I thought that the state of that was that PulseX was completely done, dusted, ready to go, just waiting for Pulse release. So that surprised me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I guess there's
By the way,
always.
do we have admins? Do we have admins in the chat?
Admins in the chat.
Do we have admins in the chat that can clean up all those scam comments?
I can't see any scam comments here.
Oh, it's just like dating sites and stuff. It's not crypto related.
Oh, right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Our audience is smart. No one's going to fall for that dumb shit.
What else have I got? Oh, just going back to that FTX stuff. There's a US politician. I think his name's Tom Emmers. And I've just got a clip of him talking. And this is one of those things that you don't usually hear this sort of stuff coming out of a politician's mouth, but it's nice to see. It's nice to hear this sort of stuff out of a politician's mouth. It shows that like some level of understanding or education on DeFi. So let me just play that.
Fortunately, the immutable characteristics of public blockchains that some people would care not to understand in this committee allowed the crypto community to reveal Sam Bankman-Fried's fraud, and the on-chain public record will assist law enforcement moving forward. I encourage my colleagues to understand Sam Bankman-Fried's con for what it is: a failure of centralization, a failure of business ethics, and a crime. It is not a failure of technology. I've worked across the aisle since I came to Congress, so the future of crypto reflects American values, the same way the internet does today. For the most engaged members of Congress on crypto policy, the FTX collapse reminds us of why we care so deeply about this technology. Decentralization is the point.
Yeah, it's nice to hear a politician say decentralization is the point.
Yep.
It really is nice to hear that. Because I heard a lot of politicians just talking nonsense.
Cynthia Lumnus is also on that camp where I would have been fine with a single voice within these hearings, whether it's a witness or a politician, like a Congress or Senate person or whatever. A single voice is all it takes, so that if someone watches it, they hear that one voice of reason. Because then if someone goes and says, okay, well, I've heard arguments on both sides of this, I'm going to go and look into it. It gives them a balanced starting point for their research. And then they will find out the truth, which is that this was not a failing of blockchain and decentralization, right? So if this had happened years ago, where the politicians and the witnesses were all just like anti-crypto stuff, it would be bad, or it would be worse. Really, in my opinion, two really good things have come out of this. One is this idea of there's no such thing as bad publicity. That means that the amount of airtime that crypto is getting from that FTX collapse may end up being worth it in the long term. It has really smashed, like crypto has been like crypto, like has been headlining news for a while because of this, and motherfuckers getting their coins off exchanges. Those two things in terms of long-term fundamental benefit to crypto.
There's another one as well.
Awareness and self-custody are both. What's up? What's number 3? What's the hat trick? Complete the hat trick.
Oh, let's complete the hat trick. So previous to all this stuff going down, SBF was working on regulation and law and putting forward.
Oh, true.
So now that guy was involved with that, like, with lawmakers and that sort of stuff, I would have thought that gets thrown in the trash. Like, it's not credible, because anything they bring forward, it's like you're bringing forward stuff that was like someone who's getting tried for fraud, like SEC violations. So what that means is that sort of leaves the door open for guys like, BitBoy, who's on that same trajectory of, wanting to put forward. And I haven't read
or the Luminous Chillibrand bill thing that they're doing, that bipartisan.
I don't know about that
thing. But, those two are doing a thing which is reasonable, like sensible crypto regulation. Because she got orange pilled. She got orange pilled by her son-in-law. Specifically talking about Cynthia, she got orange pilled by her son-in-law and just has been like very level-headed about her approach to crypto ever since. So That's quite good,
Yeah.
bro.
So it would
The
be
one
good
I wanted to
see
say.
the door. So does that make the hat trick? I think that makes it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to mention specifically to do with what you're talking about. The Shermanator, which is the guy he was voted the most anti-crypto politician in it's either the Senate or Congress. I forget. I don't really follow US politics, but he was voted, of all the politicians that are in those groups that we're talking about, he was voted the most anti-crypto, right? And he said that as part of his speech. But then he also said, I strongly urge all of my peers, like my political peers, to make absolutely sure that this bill that SBF was proposing does not get through, that was going to basically allow that guy to have like a crypto monopoly. And he was like, we have to strike it down. We have to strike it down. Preferential treatment. And he was basically also saying it was an alliance basically between the SEC and FTX that was going to be beneficial to both of them and worse for everyone else. And so that's the one thing that has come out of his mouth. So he's urging people to not ever allow that bill to go through. So this is the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation, where I'm like, holy shit. When this dude opens his mouth out, I'm already shaking my head and doing the face palm shit. and then he said that, and I was like, damn, this stuff is complicated. Like, as in, this stuff can sometimes play out not how you expect.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Look, if they are going to regulate on and off ramps, I mean, they're to some extent they're regulated in most Western places, I guess. But they really have to take a step back when it comes to DeFi and understand what the possibilities are for DeFi before they misstep. And a misstep. What does a misstep mean? It means that they stifle innovation, they stifle investment in new technologies coming out. So let's hope that doesn't happen. We're firmly on the side of DeFi. So we're hoping that it turns out for the best.
You know what? I just want to mention that I've been really surprised that a couple of times to do with this whole FTX thing, I've watched a video and I've been like, this is really good. Like, this is really good overall for crypto, etc. And then I hop on Twitter and people are being incredibly negative. So I've got two examples, right? One was Kevin O'Leary. I thought he actually did an amazing job of defending crypto in general, but then people were hyper negative, understandably so, that he was kind of trying to defend FTX and blame CZ for being the main cause of what like took FTX down. And I obviously disagree with him on that, but I thought overall he stood up and defended crypto, where one of the politicians was saying some shit where they're like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, whoa. That's like, step back, like take a step back here. Like, as in not take a step back big picture wise, but take a step back as in back the fuck up. And then the other one was, shit. Well, there was another one where, the interview with FTX by Financial Times as part of that conference. Now, I saw that as an isolated video. I just saw the interview of him. And I thought he did an excellent job of diplomatically asking him, hey, your parents bought a fucking mansion. What up? What's up with that? But people thought that he didn't go hard enough. But in my opinion, what he was doing was he was posing the questions diplomatically, a bit like the same way of what CoffeeZilla does, where you don't want to get the person you're interviewing offside by immediately being a hard ass, because that makes them defensive, and then you're unlikely to get any kind of admission. You want to make that person you're interviewing believe that you are being unbiased and almost a little bit sympathetic to their shit, so that they'll open up and then bang, gotcha, motherfucker, boots. Like, now you're in the ground. So I thought that was, people were being unfairly harsh on that Financial Times interviewer. I thought he did an excellent job of asking these leading questions. And then every third or fourth question was basically like a kill shot, where he'd be like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Oh yeah, actually, by the way, what about your parents buying like fucking mansions in the Bahamas? So I don't think he let him off easy at all.
Yeah. So what else have we got this week? Have you got any topics that you want to discuss, mate?
Well, I just saw something on Crypto Panic, because I follow Andrew Tate or whatever ever since I had to dress up as him. Did I actually tell you guys about that? I played Andrew Tate in a music video for Bruce C. He's actually quite a famous drum and bass MC, and he has his own tracks. This one I wouldn't say is his best work, the actual song that I am on the video clip for. But I played Andrew Tate in the clip. So I follow Andrew Tate and stuff like that. And I'm of the opinion that I won't throw out everything that someone says just because they say one thing that I disagree with, no matter how strongly I disagree with that one thing. So even if someone said crypto shit, and I would be thinking, this person's a fucking idiot. But I'm not just going to go and basically assume that everything else of all their opinions on all topics globally are incorrect. So with Tate, I urge people to take that kind of attitude. And he's going like mad pro crypto at the moment. And he has quite a large audience. So that's a good thing. He's really encouraging people. He's like the narrative of, if you start scaling insensibly now, you are going to be not having to work for the rest of your life once we go into the next bull cycle, is his kind of I'm paraphrasing his approximate stance on crypto, which is really good. Anyone that's pro crypto with a large audience has got to be a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What was I going to say? I had something. Oh, yeah. I've been playing around with like different operating systems and stuff, man.
Cool.
So just checking out like the most privacy focused ones and all this sort of stuff.
What's your favorite shit so far?
Well, you need to categorize them. I think the easiest shit is Tails. I think that's
really.
I think that's the easiest.
That's the one. But are we talking about like?
I think there's only three.
Easy
Bro,
for
I think there's
users
only three
who are not technically savvy, or are we talking like convenience-wise?
Listen, if you're not a little bit technically savvy, fucking
don't
forget
even
about
start.
it. Fucking forget about it, right? Seriously, you need to
block your ears.
What is technically savvy?
Do not try this at home.
No, seriously, what is technically savvy? You need to be able to read and comprehend what you're reading and then follow instructions, right? It's not rocket science. If you can do crypto, you can definitely install Tails. Like there's no doubt about that in my mind. If you can work out crypto, you can follow
already
instructions.
Has a technical barriers to entry.
Yeah. So everyone here, I have confidence that you could work out how to do it. And if not, you can go find the solutions. But in my opinion, there's only like 3 operating systems that like I would classify as probably the best when it comes to online privacy. And when I talk about online privacy, I mean like third parties, whether it be websites or whatever, just harvesting your data. That's what it comes down to. Like, who is getting this data? So I just want to know, what would you say the top 3 are, or do you have a top 3 or?
Sorry, top 3 for what specifically was it?
Like privacy focused operating systems.
I think going to anything that's Linux is already a massive improvement. If people can be
over Windows,
doing that over Windows and Mac. Then
so there's different flavors of Linux. Like there's different.
I know. Yeah. But I'm saying any Linux. I'm saying any Linux is automatically an improvement. So I think for most people, just picking a Linux system that is so. There are Linux systems like Debian, is that how you pronounce it?
Debian.
That are more supported. So you're less likely to run into a thing where you can't get the software to work. So for most people, I think something like that, a Debian-based one, because you even have ones that they're not Debian, but they're Debian-based. So then anytime where there's an installer pack, like a downloader that works for that system, it'll work. And it seems to be constantly changing which one is the best, which is great. It means that each one of them, like I remember back when people used to say that like Red Hat was the best, and then there was that Lime.
Red Hat's like server software, isn't it?
Oh, okay. There was like one Lime something or other that was meant to be really good.
Right. So the three.
There's one that I've actually been playing around with, but I forget which one it's actually called. I can go on. I've just got to pull up a freaking my VM software.
From my research over the last few months or whatever, V3 most hardened operating systems, not just for security like in the system, but also when you're on the using the internet, would be Tails. And this is in no particular order of which is the best or which is not.
I just found mine. My VM's running Ubuntu, which is probably one of the ones you're about to list.
No.
Oh.
Because they're all like pretty... No, look, they're probably better than Windows, but they're still like, there's nothing really in that's it. They're better for things like viruses, I guess, but there's nothing in them that is better from a privacy preserving perspective when you're using the internet.
Can I mention something about viruses actually, which I think is very true, so the example is that for a long time, there was this narrative going around that Mac devices couldn't get viruses, which everyone at the time who's like anyone not a retard, like anyone who was computer savvy at all knew that must have been a false narrative. But people believed that shit. And the reason for it, which is the actual point I was going to make, is typically people who write viruses, malware, Trojans, exploits, they want to go for maximum impact. So they will target the operating system that is most popular. So at the time that there was that narrative going around about Mac, it was not that Mac was invincible to viruses because it was just like better quality. People just weren't creating viruses for Mac because it was just more profitable.
You don't have root access to... My understanding is you don't have root access in Mac.
Well, they still get viruses though.
Okay.
Like as in,
I'm not a
Macs absolutely get smashed. At the time, I think it was just because people weren't writing them for Mac because it just wasn't as impactful. So I think Linux comes under that thing now. There's not as many people trying to exploit Linux because they won't get as much impact for the effort that they put in to create the virus or the exploit. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I believe that to be true. I guess what I'm focusing on here is online anonymity. And you can't really have it. You can't really fully have that. It's sort of like very difficult. We were talking about fingerprinting last week, and that relates to this. But there is a question here that I think is Linux virtual machine a good idea for using crypto? Okay, so this is sort of complicated stuff, but this is the way I see it. You're going to run a virtual machine inside another operating system. That operating system can see what's going on in that virtual machine, and your virtualization software can see what's happening in that virtual machine. So it all depends on those two factors of how secure that you're going to be making that virtual machine. If your base operating system is not anonymous, or you're using a virtualization software like VirtualBox or something, I mean, these things have bugs. Windows has bugs. There's always CVEs for Windows all the time. So
I'll tell you.
I mean, my personal opinion is that is sort of not the way I would look at like online. Like if you want to try and be anonymous. That's not how I would go about it. But not that virtual machines are a bad idea, but there are specific operating systems that are focused on this sort of thing. And like, sorry, go on, and then I'll list my three.
I was just going to say, I'll give you why I'm using that VM. It's not because I think it's going to give added security. It's because it just annoys me that every time I install the Monero wallet on a PC, it throws up all these fucking virus false alerts, like false positives or whatever. Well, I don't know for 100% that they are false positives, but it does throw up virus alerts. I believe they are false positives, and it annoys the shit out of me. So I just created a VM with a Linux install to put just specifically to put Monero wallet on, so that then I'm not getting those virus warnings coming up all the time. And if it is a virus, it's contained within that silo. That's the only reason. I wasn't doing it thinking that it was going to give me added privacy or security or any of that shit. It was literally just that reason.
Yeah. So the three, and once again, this is sort of like, there's a technical barrier to these. I think of the three, Tails is the easiest, but the other two are Cubes OS and Whonix. Those three.
I have used Cubes and I have used Tails. I haven't used that last one that you said.
The last one
sounds like
it's Whonix.
Sounds like a joke. Sounds like a joke.
Yeah. So Whonix uses, it's like virtualized environments. So they're sort of sandboxed.
Okay.
So yeah, it's and it's not easy actually. Like Whonix is like a friggin' pain in the ass, dude. Like don't start out. Like if you want to have like something that's reasonably secure, reasonably anonymous, you're probably going to go with Tails. But because that, in my opinion, that's the easiest. You just flash the image to a USB and off you go, and install like off the USB. So you need to be able to boot. You need to be able to boot to that USB on your system.
What about? I might get back into Tails. Actually, it's been a while since I've used it. What is your opinion on the Web3 wallets? Have you got any updated opinions or whatever? Have you been? I've got to admit, I've been really slack, man, because I've been so busy. I've just stuck for the purpose of me just getting shit done quickly. I'm still on MetaMask, just using a different RPC for Ethereum, but I want to get into using these other wallets, either Block or Rabby or Internet Money Wallet.
The thing about Block is you can only install it on a Chrome-based system, so you can use it on Brave. You can't use it on. It's not available on Firefox or anything.
That's
like
that's
that.
okay. That's okay for me. I don't mind.
The other
you could still have MetaMask on your Firefox and just have so that if you have to use Firefox, you've still got a Web3 wallet there or whatever, like fallback or.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing that last week, someone in the chat mentioned Frame Wallet. And when I went to the ethereum.org website and looked up there, because they've got a list of wallets, right? And so I went there and I had a look and I saw that Frame was there. It's actually a desktop application that you run. And then there's an extension link that they give you, which connects that desktop application to your browser. And then... And then, so there's a connection that way, and then you
kind of like the Trezor bridge.
It's sort of like that. But then you can connect up your Trezor and Ledger to it. It's a little bit like finicky. I mean, the interface is pretty good, I guess. But the thing is that it is open source, so that's important. But I did notice that. When you connect up, it automatically has a permission to a particular domain. So you sort of need to go in every time you connect up a wallet and like get rid of that permission, in advance. because I don't know what it's doing. If it's pinging, I don't know what it's doing, dude. I can't read the code. I don't know, but that there's an option there, and that's a desktop based one. But that's all thanks to someone in the chat mentioning that. And then when I saw it on the list of wallets on the Ethereum.org website, it like rang a bell. It's like, oh yeah, that someone was talking about that last week. So I had a look into that. It seems to work. There's a couple of, it's not as simple as just having a wallet extension in the browser, but it's something else. It's you can add custom RPCs.
Yep.
So it's another option out there. But do your research, do your due diligence. I don't know what data these applications collect and send off. I really don't know. I don't know. It's sort of, we're in this. It would be nice if there was a Richard Hart one. That's what I like.
There's actually something I just remembered from last week. We talked briefly about Internet Money Wallet, which is one of the wallets that's being created by some people, KG, and I think his brother and his dad.
Yep.
And I got several messages from people thinking that my comments were negative. Like, so they were DMing me being like, why are you like shitting on Internet Money Wallet? I like it, sort of thing. And these are people that I interact with quite frequently in the HEX community.
Is that wallet working?
Like a level of mutual respect. I actually don't know. I don't know. But the point is, I just wanted to clarify publicly, because I did with them through DM and actually on Twitter as well. I tweeted it out, but obviously sometimes that doesn't have as much reach or impact, or there might be people that watch this show but don't follow my Twitter. By the way, follow me on Twitter. That my comment was not intended to be negative about that wallet. I was simply kind of recounting my main criticism, or the like sort of in those interviews. It was like in my grill and shill series where I was trying to be as like hard on projects as possible, right? And so I just remembered my main sort of criticism of the like, whoa, 2 tokens. But everyone has assured me through DM that there's justification for the 2 tokens. KG offered to stream with me again and like re-clarify it. So I just and I don't really have time to do that. So I just wanted to clarify on here that I wasn't making a negative comment. They are confident that there is a strong case to be made for having dual token on the wallet. And the thing that I do like about it the most, if I was picking out of wallets, I was actually going to say this, but we got distracted and talked about something else. I literally had written this down to say this last stream, is that in my opinion, my hierarchy for wallets would be a Richard Hart made wallet I would just immediately use that because I trust his ethics to do with privacy and security, that he would prioritize those things highly. And he stated that. Then next after that would be made by someone within the HEX community because they are likely to also display those same principles and beliefs and ethics. So in that respect, and then after that, one from randoms who I don't know who claim to have that strong belief in privacy would be the next. And then after that would just be like probably MetaMask, because at least it's like well used enough that it's, even if it's like a bit Trojan-y, it's unlikely to be a total fuck up, right? And I've also been using it for enough time that I trust it on a functional level. So that would kind of be my hierarchy of wallets. That's a 4-stage hierarchy, and KG's Internet Money Wallet slots in at number 2. So, for anyone who thought that I was being unnecessarily negative towards the wallet, I just thought I'd clear that up.
Yep. Yeah, so last week I mentioned that on Block Wallet there was like a mixer incorporated into it. On closer inspection, that mix has been deactivated. So I think that has something. It was using Tornado.
Damn.
So that's why I thought that they had their own protocol.
So it was using the back-end contracts. That's good.
It's been deactivated. Mm-hmm. So
what would be extra amazing about that is anyone who basically creates a front end that still uses that back end legally, it might still mean that you're not breaking the sanctions because you're not using. Oh wait, maybe I'm not sure. Actually, don't quote me on that. But my point is, you're getting the benefit of the anonymity set that got stuck there. You know how there was some funds that got stuck where people were too scared to touch it because it meant that you could be like mega fucked. So there's still an anonymity set just waiting there that you get to pull in with by default. Anyone who creates a front end or a way that utilizes those back end smart contracts. So
I could be wrong, but I think it's still accessible via IPFS. I could be wrong.
No, I think that's right.
I'm not sure.
But like Richard said, of all the things that you want to like mess around with, US sanctions is not in that list. No. Like it should be at the top of the list of things that you do not fuck around with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. So we've sort of covered a few things. We're sort of waiting for this Pulse launch. I don't think it's going to be before Christmas, but when do you think something's going to start coming out? Like,
oh man,
it's not normal. It's not normal to get that update. Like we got that update, but that's not a normal thing.
That's a good point. That's a good spin, actually, is that if Richard, and I always take what Richard says at face value because he's never lied in the past, and I don't believe he has any reason to. So if we take his shit at face value where he said, you guys have given me PTSD now for giving updates because of how harshly everyone reacted to my update that didn't come true. So now I am no longer going to give updates. For him to give any kind of update at all could theoretically imply that he's actually has reasonable confidence that he's not going to get his head bitten off for it. So, i.e. launching soon.
Well, there's different types of updates. There's a prediction of when it's coming out sort of update, which I think he should steer clear of that. But then there's just updates like what are they doing right now? Like what are they working on? What are they doing right now? And those sorts of updates I think are great because it keeps us engaged. It gives us something to talk about. We know that stuff's getting done and we're not totally in the dark about it. Yeah. So it gives us, I guess it gives us some level of confidence. Not that we weren't confident to begin with, but when the expectation is that it's coming out before the end of 2021, and we're about to see the end of 2022, then hearing the occasional update is not a bad thing, in my opinion.
I think like it's too late to make this suggestion to Richard, but I think what would have, and I only thought of it recently, but I think what an amazing way to have handled this would have been to have said to the devs, look, every time there's like news, like an update, I want you to categorize them into two categories. Ones which are commercially sensitive, i.e. we can't allow competitors, either chains that already exist or chains that could potentially be in the works, to find out about this update because it will give them the benefit that they can start working on it or alert them to the fact that it's something of benefit or that it's an improvement or a requirement or some critical aspect. And then updates that are not commercially sensitive. And then he could just, whenever they give him that list, he can just release all the non-sensitive updates and also say, as usual, there are other updates that I can't mention because of competitors. So you know that here are all the updates, and at least that much has been progressed. Do you know what I mean? But it's too late now. I think we're too close to launch to fuck around with this sort of stuff. Just get it done. Like,
yeah, it does feel like we're getting there. What do you think of T-Bird's comment?
I try to avoid making a prediction now in line with my whole trying to forget about it and not worry about it until we get some solid evidence. I'm kind of not going to make predictions, but I know that I follow Crypto7. I like his channel. I'll actually be on his channel. We're going to stream once the testnet launches, and he was reading quite positive things into some of the things that Richard has said recently on Twitter Spaces and in other various forums. And so you could watch his streams to see what you make of that and whether you agree or not, how how much is being implied there. And I've also given up. I know that's a joke comment, but I've also given up on fighting people about him timing the bottom thing. I just let people who believe that, I just let them believe it now. I think most people know my pitch, and I don't want to get to a point where people are like, oh man, Tangent's shit is so repetitive. Every time someone says something about this, he's on this rant about. I think I've made such solid arguments multiple times now. I don't really have anything to add. To me, it's obvious that he's not.
Can I put this to you, right? And I don't know one way or the other. I really have no idea. But what about this? I remember him talking about minimum viable.
I remember that. I remember that.
Could it be that minimum viable is dependent on the market in some? What is minimum viable is dependent on what if the market's pumping, it's better. Does that
that's possible. Yep.
Maybe he's not specifically timing the market. Maybe I don't. Yeah,
I see what you're saying, and in a sense, that sounds plausible. And then technically, if that's the case, that he's got a dynamic list of what is minimum viable, then technically that is a form of timing the market, because where he believes we are in the cycle, if that is influencing any aspect of this launch, then I would concede that counts as timing the market. One of the problems for me becomes,
but it's a gray area. It's sort of gray because
gray
right now he might be like, well, there's no need at all to rush.
If we're just grinding, we're grinding the bottom, then it's not a rush.
I want this. I've got this list of things that I want.
Other than the community just getting increasingly agitated.
I don't think that's going to make any difference, dude.
I think it does.
I think we could get
Richard claims that he cares deeply about what people think of him.
As many knots as we like. I think he is going to have he's going to have his standard of what he wants to launch something as, and it has to meet. It has to have the check boxes need to be ticked. And even if that's after the bottom, it might be after. Maybe shit's not ready after the bottom because he's got his checklists of what
I think Richard Hart actually has an incredibly unique combination of being what we call in Australia thick-skinned. I don't know if they use that globally. It means water off a duck's back, resistant to people's criticism would be the generic way of saying it, while also caring about what people think of him. Now, that sounds contradictory, right? That sounds like a paradox. But I think Richard actually does fall into that category where he has proven himself to be very tolerant of people being negative towards him publicly, while also demonstrating a genuine care for his image and what people think of him, particularly people within the community, people that have supported him or the people that are on his team, right? Like Team Win. So yeah, that was the only comment I was going to make in relation to what you're talking about of whether or not. So I think it's like there's a balance going on there. He definitely wouldn't allow people's whinging for him to release a product that is not to his standard. He's strong enough to resist that temptation, but I don't think that it is going. I don't think these complaints are falling on deaf ears. Is also my comment. Does that sound reasonable?
I think so. I think he's aware of the sentiment for sure.
The other problem that I face with this whole timing the bottom fight that I'm having against people is it's going to be very difficult for us to prove who was right about it because there's no real metrics. Because so
the timing the bottom argument, I think
so dumb, man.
It implies this is what it implies. Shit's ready to go, completely ready to go right now.
Yes.
And he's just waiting, right? I don't think that's the case at all. I think
that is
he
one
wants
of
shit to be-
many arguments I have that absolutely
Yeah.
slices that
No,
shit in half.
I'm
and
not
just
on
absolutely
that.
destroys
I'm
it.
not on that, man, at all. I think he's got checklists. He wants shit to be done. But if there's no rush, why fucking rush? Like,
Wait, also, that would mean that tweet because they're basically calling him a liar. That tweet that he just said about the update of what they're working on, that would have to be a lie, because the thing has to, like you just said, the thing has to be ready to go, and he's just waiting to pull the trigger on the market. So now he's lying about updates, being like, "Oh yeah, we're working on this thing," just making shit up. Like, he wouldn't fucking do that. It's just so dumb, man. The whole thing's so dumb. It's so dumb. I think one of the most powerful ones. I said I wasn't going to rant about it, but for me, one of the most powerful ones. He said,
you started this, T-Bird.
Even if I was timing the bottom, we're close enough to the bottom. So he even said, he said, this is dumb. I'm not doing it. Here are the reasons why. And even if I was doing it, the go time is now anyway. And then there are still people out there being like, bro, he's timing the market.
I think like I said, I think there's like, it's a bit of a gray area as far as, it's that time frame of what is a minimum viable product is something that can be extended or reduced. But yeah.
So one of the ones
that is correct. Ash, Tangent's calling us dumb.
Not us, only people who think he's timing the market for Pulse launch. So I don't know who that what subset of hexagons that contains. But yeah, the one that I was so right on, man. I don't know if I've flexed on this yet on our channel or any channel, actually. I did a little bit on Twitter. I had one tweet. The Maxi Premium. Anyone who disagreed with me, and man, I was copping heat for that for such a long time, because it took so long for the premium to come back down, that everyone who argued against me thought they were right for so long that I had to put up with all these people being like, "Oh, Tangent, fucking look at the premium. You were so wrong," and shit for ages. And I've now been vindicated. I was fucking right. All the people who argued against me were fucking wrong. So wrong. So wrong. I just told everyone for the entire time. And I didn't have many people.
Not everyone was on the same, like, I remember when that argument was happening, that I was sort of somewhere in the middle where I thought,
that was fair. Yeah, that's fine.
I agreed with you. The thing that
you at least agree with me fundamentally that these premiums are not guaranteed, that they can swing, right? Like,
absolutely, and
I
also
like nothing in the market is guaranteed.
You had descriptions of what, like, a premium, like the way you described it was like fucking spot on, dude. Like, you described them like perfectly, the way, like, what a premium was, and I can't remember what words we were using, but the way you described it was spot on. And
like to do with underlying value.
Underlying value.
Yeah,
absolutely. The way you described it was spot on. Having said that, like, people who swapped HEX for Maxi, they are still like, they're still up as far as
there's still a small premium. I think it might be like 4% or something. But remember that we had a premium that was like over 100%.
Oh yeah.
Like, so, it went nuts. It went to
2.42 HEX or something. I don't know where it's sitting now. It's like
nuts, bro. It was nuts.
Remember,
I scaled out leading up to 2.0. So I scaled out going towards a 100% premium.
Yeah.
And people thought I was an idiot because it kept going up higher than that. Like, it kept, like you said, it went to 2. But obviously what we're talking about is HEX ratio.
Yeah.
Obviously, the longer time goes on, the more it diminishes how accurately you can just use the HEX ratio. But ballparking it, it's fine. That's what I was saying. That was one of the problems that people had, was because everyone started ballparking it at the start as just the ratio to HEX, because it was a fair assumption. That was a fair assumption at the start, when the underlying value had not deviated far from 1.0 HEX. And that was part of the problem, was that people didn't realize that was a limited assumption for this model. And so people just kept running with that and wouldn't listen to me when I would explain to them what the difference was. And as that deviation started to occur, they just became more and more wrong in the premise of their argument. So it became a shit show, but for various reasons. But yeah, you're right. So people were like, dude, you shouldn't have sold. It's going to the moon or whatever. And I had actually zero Maxi by that point. I'd completely scaled out. And my plan was to scale back in around, once the premium came significantly back under where I scaled out. So but then I was busy and didn't, luckily.
The premium now is 1.35.
Is that on the website?
That's
the website.
Dex Screener, 1.35 hex.
That's not premium. That's the ratio to the hex price.
Yeah.
So if you go on, if you go to the actual Maxi, if you go to the Maxi website, it actually has the properly calculated premium. I think it's about 4% now. So people that thought I was an idiot scaling out at like 100% gain,
what's the website?
I could buy back in now at 4% up.
Maximus
4%
now at the website.
Yeah, it's and we actually fired some questions on Twitter about what is and isn't included into those premium calcs, and they're actually done correctly. So the team burn, when the team tokens were burnt, when Maxi was burnt as a part of the team, when team launched or whatever, I don't know the exact details, but some Maxi was burnt. That is also factored in. So this is the correct premium, correctly calculated, and I think the last time I looked, it was about 4%.
Where is it on this website?
Go.maximus.cash or something. I think it's go.maximus.cash. Go.maximus.cash. But careful, it might load up your wallet.
Dude, please. As if I have a wallet on this system.
I just thought I'd warn you just in case.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, so it might not actually let you even look at the site without connecting a wallet.
Okay.
Let me just look. I'll attach a burner account to this shit.
Maybe if I go to the dashboard.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I need an address. Hang on. Let's have a look.
Oh, just smash any
4.2% premium. There we go.
Boom.
So that was over 100% premium at one stage.
Correct. Yeah, so me accidentally not scaling back in because I was super busy at the time ended up being the best thing ever, because now I can get it for even less than where I was going to scale back in. I was going to scale back in like maybe 20-30% premium. Now I get 4%. So, which is brilliant. That's fucking dope.
Yep.
And anyone who argued against me, reverse wrecked.
Stick that knife in, dude.
And I don't mean reverse wrecked in terms of the opposite of getting wrecked. I mean wrecked in the reverse way of normal. Missed gains.
Yep. Gotcha.
And I probably wouldn't even, and I know I'm not gloating that hard here. I'm not flexing that hard on it, but I probably wouldn't even be flexing at this level if I hadn't copped so much relentless abuse on Twitter. People just posting the same shit over and over again on my shit, commenting on my stuff, tweeting at me, being like, now what's up? Now what's up, bitch? Now what's up, bitch? Take a look at the premium, bitch. Now what's up, bitch? Well, guess what? Now what's up, bitch? Like, that's how, that's like, what's good, son? What's good?
Now you have.
I think that's a fair policy. If the harder that people come at you should be proportional to the harder that you're allowed to say, I told you so, which is probably why Richard Hart gets away with a lot of fucking guns blazing level taking down haters and flexing on his correct calls, is because when people come at him, they come at him hard.
Yeah, they do. They certainly do. So that the interesting thing is with Maxi, because there's the underlying value is constantly going up due to the stakes. At this point in time, with a 4% premium, you're not far away. It's a matter of time before the underlying value goes over that, overtakes that 4%. So we're only 8 months in. We're only 8 months into Maximus, 8 months and 4 days. So it's really a judgment call. I mean, could it go down further? It certainly can. It certainly can. Anything's possible.
It can go into discount, which was actually one of my points in those earlier discussions. I was like, these things typically cycle. So people were arguing against me, saying the premium's not going to go down. Their feeble minds couldn't even comprehend the idea of it ever being in a discount. If that happens, it's going to break their world. Like, but anyone who's looked at like anything that's ever had a premium / discount, look at GBTC, all these things. GBTC was the example I was giving at the time, saying, look at GBTC. People believe that thing would never go into discount. But people genuinely believe that would never go into discount. And part of the problem was the same as what happened with Maxi. An extended period where it's always in premium, people just have recency bias and they're like, this thing's never going to, that age-old mistake of, this time it's different or this time it's not different, however you want to word it or whatever. But basically the recency bias. And then the day that it goes into discount, that's when they are like, oh, these things can go into discount. Oh, shit, I didn't realize. So like you said, this could go down further. It could go into discount. Some of the other perpetuals are actually already in discount.
I remember, I think Deci was. Deci was in discount.
They're all very close to 1.0 at the moment. So I think Deci might be the only one at the moment out of the 4 that's in discount. I think the other 3 are in small premium, like small. And in fact, sorry, I won't even call it premium because that small amount above 1.0 might actually be within ballpark, within correct of what the gain of the in the increase in underlying may have actually. So they might actually be in discount even if they're over 1.0 hex. But look, the point is they're all around the 0 mark. They're all within a few percent of their underlying value. And so like Deci could theoretically be a good buy. Look, I think retrospectively, people are going to look at these, crypto prices in general, but particularly the ones where you can calculate underlying. That was also one of my points at the time. Something that people were disagreeing with me on they were like, what's your, like, why are you saying this shit? Like, crypto goes up and down. You can never know for sure sort of thing. And I'm like, no, this is different to regular cryptos where you cannot accurately calculate the underlying value relative to another asset that it can be paired with. Like that was the difference here. Normally crypto, you can kind of try to create these models of underlying value, but it's never accurate, and B, it's not against something that there's actually a tradable pair. So that's what made Maxi very unique in the things that I was commenting on. And so that was another thing that people didn't understand. And so, but the only thing that really annoyed me was, as you said, I actually explained these concepts really well multiple times, tried to explain them in an easy to understand way, and people still didn't get it. It wasn't like I was doing like high level shit where I'm like making a high level comment with no explanation of why, like the backing of why these things were, you know what I mean? I explained it in an easy to digest way, and people were listening to what I was saying and then just still going against it. It was wild to me. It was absolutely wild. But at least now we've got the evidence, and people can learn for next time.
So there's a comment from Hex Machine. I remember when we used to do bitch tits, price predictions every week. Good times.
Let me just say, dropped off.
Look, that dropped. Look, in a bear market, it's no fun. It's just no fun. But I guarantee bitch tits will be back in the bull market. It will be back.
Oh, that's a really good point. We want the whole idea. We wanted people being like held moonish. That's a really good point. It's not a fun game to play in a bear market.
No, bitch tits will be back. We'll be back in the bull market when it comes, if it comes. But hey, dude, we've been going for like an hour and 48 minutes.
Yeah. I've got unless there's anything really important, let's can it.
Yeah. Do you have any?
I think we actually covered a lot of interesting things. Oh, sorry, there was one comment. I lost it because this thing scrolls. And so I apologize. I don't know who made this comment. It was saying that Richard Hart was mentioned on a stream called Walk the World. So
Yep.
the comment said Richard Hart and HEX was mentioned on Walk the World. Also, they mentioned something about HEX in Perth. That might have been my event, maybe. And something about a HEX chick that has a tattoo. And I'm like, oh, that all sounds good. And they said, but their overall commentary about HEX, like their commentary on HEX was negative. So I wanted to ask that person who commented for more info, but I'll just go and watch the streams, the recent Walk the World streams, and try and work out what's going on. So look, no, I said earlier, no such thing as bad publicity.
I believe that's the case, like here, because that's not a stream that would normally talk about HEX. So the fact that they're even bringing it up means that people might go and have a look at it and maybe start learning about how it works.
Yep. And then my I'm going to make my standard sign out is this idea that I've had that if everyone was to just, if you're already on Twitter and you're already surfing Twitter, you might as well just go to Richard Hart's page and click like on everything that he has tweeted in as tweets and comments and replies to other people's tweets, assuming, of course, that you agree with what he's saying, and pump that algorithm specifically in that forum.
Absolutely. Go do it, guys. Go do it, guys and girls. All right. Well, thanks, Tangent, for coming on this week. I would like to extend a big thank you to everyone in the chat. You guys are why we come back every week to do this. We appreciate your comments, and I guess that's all from us this week. We'll see you next week on another episode of the HEX Late Show.
Hell yes.